This story is called Wonder Horse, the true story of the world's smartest horse. Bill Key was born a slave on a plantation in 1833. Even as a little boy, he had a special way with animals. He could soothe and he could cure just about any creature. After Bill grew up and slaves were freed, he became a veteran. He was called Doc Key. Most of the patients were horses. In those days, horses did the hauling, pulling, and carrying, and they were often abused. Few people realized that animals have feelings. Bill believed in treating every animal with kindness. "Put down your whip," he would say to a farmer trying to get his tired horse to move. Bill stroked the spot on the animal's neck where its mother had once nuzzled. "All creatures like kindness," Bill advised. His methods worked. His reputation spread. Doc created a medicine called Keystone Liniment. It worked on colic, lameness, cramps, and headache in both humans and animals. His liniment made him rich. Doc bought a hotel and a restaurant. After he bought a racetrack, he wanted to own the fastest horse in the country. One day, he heard that the circus was selling its animals. Doc went to see if a racer was among them. He noticed a beautiful mare with a distinctive profile. An Arabian, Doc thought. Arabians were known for speed and intelligence, but she looked frightened. There were marks on her flanks where she'd been whipped. Doc bought her for $40. Doc loved his new horse, Loretta. She was the smartest horse he'd ever known. He found a champion stallion to follow her foal. Then he waited for a future champion to be born. But the new foal has twisted legs and a mottled homely coat. Doc thought the foal was too weak to survive, so he called her plain old Jim Key. Worse, the birth used up Loretta's strength. Doc tried desperately to save her, but Loretta died. Doc's heart closed shut with grief. No one could console him, not even his dogs, who waited for Doc to throw a stick for them to fetch. Meanwhile, little Jim Key tried desperately to stand on the crooked legs. His bright black eyes begged Doc not to lose hope in him. One day, Doc felt a nudge on his shoulder. It was Jim Key, with a stick in his mouth. "You want to play fetch?" Doc smiled for the first time in weeks. He threw the stick and Jim stumbled after it. The foal had never taken more than 2 steps. Jim picked up the stick and toddled back. He trotted a few feet. Offering his stick, he spread out the lips and grinned. "You're trying to cheer me up, aren't you?" Doc asked. After Doc and the dogs were inside his house, he heard loud knocking on the front door. It was Jim. "Okay, Jim, you win," Doc said. He made Jim a bed on the floor in a spare room. The colt slept there every night until he was too big for the doorways and too heavy for the floorboards. Then Doc took his own bed out to the barn. Almost everything Doc did, Jim tried to do too. Jim figured out how to unlock the paddock gate. He opened the drawer where Doc kept apples, ate them all, and then shut the drawer. When Doc laughed at his antics, Jim seemed to laugh too. "I wonder what else you can learn," Doc said. Jim lifted his chin as if to say, "Try me." Doc decided to take time off for selling liniment. Doc taught Jim one lesson at a time, repeating it and rewarding Jim with apples or sugar. First, Doc wrote the letter A on the card. He said A aloud, then put the card in Jim's lip, held him shut, and patted his neck. It took many months, but Doc never lost patience. Finally, when Doc asked Jim to fetch the A, Jim did it. They proceeded to B, then to C, until Jim knew the whole alphabet. In the following years, Jim learned to count and to pick out the primary colors. One day, watching Jim add and subtract, Doc cried, "Jim, we should go on the road. People will be amazed by how much you know. They will see the animals have feelings, and it's wrong to make them suffer." "Wonder if Jim could do that in front of strangers," one of Doc's farm hands said. "Might just be sensing what you want him at all." Doc knew that Jim had truly become educated. He arranged for a show to prove it. At first, audience couldn't believe his eyes, but soon they gasped and cheering. Jim Key loved being the star of the show. The bigger the audience, the more he hammed it up. Jim spelled, made change for a cash register, danced to music, and bowed to ladies in the audience, flicking his tail and grinning. Jim and Doc traveled to fairs, small-town theaters, and big city arenas. But one day, Doc saw a newspaper headline, "Is horses intelligent and a fraud?" The story asked. How could a little old black man with no education tell a dumb animal to do these things? The next day, there were hecklers in the audience. "This is all a trick," one shouted. "Some people are often by your brain power," Doc said to Jim, "but children believe in you." Doc asked the local board of education to close the schools for a day so that every child in town could come to the show. The board replied, "We can't close our schools for horse shows or monkey shows." The insult made Doc more determined. "Jim, we have to find a sponsor. We can't fight prodigious all by ourselves." Doc wrote a society to prevention of cruelty to animals. "Let us team up. Jim can help spread your message." "What if your act is a hoax?" they wrote back. "People already call us foolish in teaching kindness to animals." Doc invited them to come see for themselves, and they agreed, as long as the demonstration was secret. The big day arrived. Doc and Jim waited and waited, but no one showed up. Doc said, "I have another idea." Doc invited a team of professors for Harvard University to exclaim Jim Key and decided if he was really educated. The professor agreed. "You must wait outside when you examine Jim," they told Doc. They let Jim inside and shut the door. Doc waited patiently. A crowd gathered. Hours later, the door opened. The professor announced her findings. "It is not the hoax," Jim answered all her questions. He could read, spell, arithmetic, and identify colors entirely result in education. Every newspaper carried a story. Jim Key, educated by kindness. The Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals agreed to sponsor Jim Key's performances. After the show, thousands of school children signed a pledge that said, "I promise to treat animals with kindness." For 9 years, Doc and Jim Key traveled to country in a custom railroad car, delighting audiences of all kinds. Then they retired to the peaceful life of Jim Key Farm, where enthusiastic fans visit, and Jim was always happy to amaze them with what he knew. The end.